you're on the market for a great bike, don't knock a classic 350 Reborn. So these come in Australia around $8,000, and I think if you purchase one of these, it'll be the best investment you've had on a motorcycle for a long time. I'm still totally wrapped with mine after owning it for 18 months, longest I've ever owned a bike, and I've also clocked up 10,000 kilometres, which beats any record I've had on the bike previously. The only real issue I have with this bike, and like I said, it cost me $8,000 in Australia, was when I first bought it, 2 or 3 days later, it developed a sticky Speedo out on a run, and the Speedo jammed on 40 kilometres an hour. Took a bit of rectifying. In the end, I thought I worked out some sort of a fix to try to stop it from doing that, which I think now was more related to having the bike out in warm weather compared to as it moved into my area into the cold climate. I never struck it anymore. But apart from that, that's just something you had to put up with in the early days, but the dealers do a replacement Speedo. So after a period around about 3 months after I complained to them about the Speedo not working, they finally got me a new Speedo, and this particular bike had a bit of a blemish in the fuel tank when I got it too, somewhere around about just in that section there. So I also complained to the Enfield dealer about that at the same time, and by the time 3 months was up, I got the call from them. They replaced the fuel tank with a new tank, and I also got the new Speedo. Now I've still got the fuel tank, haven't used it yet because I thought, why put a new one on when go to all that trouble when this one here is still all right and you can't hardly notice it, but it did have a blemish in the tank. But apart from that, over a period of 18 months now, and this is, like I said, the longest I've ever owned a motorcycle in my life, and I've had heaps of motorcycles. In actual fact, I've had, over the past 10 years, I've had more brand new motorcycles than what there are weeks in a year. So I've had a lot of motorbikes, and overall, what I can say about these classic 350 Reborn, they're really good bikes. And the other record of mine was that I've put 10,000 kilometres on this bike, and I've never put 10,000 k's on any of the other bikes. Mainly I got rid of them because they weren't any good. But this particular bike, you know, I did come into it a little bit apprehensive at first and bought 2 of them. So I bought this Halcyon Grey, and then I bought the Marsh Grey too because I thought they might have been unreliable and I might have issues, and I thought I might as well have one of each. But got rid of the Marsh Grey in the end because there was just no need for it. This bike's been ultra reliable. I've ridden it everywhere. Single track, dirt track. It's not a show pony like, even though if you look at the bike itself, and by that clip earlier what I showed you, this one just presents itself like brand new. When you first buy these bikes, the first thing you're going to find when you ride it is the gear shifter is not really good to use. And the trouble is they've got it down position too low. So the first thing you got to do is check back on my clip, and I'll show you how to adjust the gear lever. Better still, we could have a quick crack at that now. So if you've got one of these and you want to know how to adjust it, undo this nut here, just below left there. You'll have to undo the chassis one up here, loosen up, pull the bolt out. This bar here, support bar for the motor, it'll drop down. You can undo this little bolt here to the side, and then just pull out your normal toe shifter and just move it up one notch and you'll get it back together. Better idea is this heel and toe shifter. You can pick one of those up for $60 or $70 on eBay. Go for one of those. The experience using one of those is really good, and I can highly recommend them because I've put them on several of the Enfields over the years. Now surprisingly, when I first bought the bike, I wasn't all that crash hot or thought much about the Seat tyres, which are stock standard on the classic 350 Reborn. But believe it or not, with 10,000 k's on them, that's the tread pattern I've got left here on the front. And we'll swing around to the back, check her out there. And there we go that way too. Now speaking of my best accessory mod, and we'll swing over to it now, check these out. These are the rear shocks from a classic 500. These are the gas type shocks, piggyback, and they're extremely good compared to the stock shock. I think one of the biggest surprises for me is this rear chain. I've only ever adjusted it twice, and this is a factory chain, and I've done 10,000 kilometres on it now, and it's still alright, and I don't even do anything fancy with it. I just spray it with WD-40, give it a clean over with a rag, spray it with WD-40, and I don't do that all that regular either, but so far so good. It's holding together well. So you would have no idea this has had the hiding of that. Now when I say hiding, I better correct it there. I'm not talking about get out there and flog the crap out of it every time I go out. No, that's not the case. What I mean by that, it's not a show pony as far as the guys who buy one of these and only run it at the coffee shop on Sunday. This bike knows its way around on dirt roads, and I'd say out of the 10,000 kilometres I've travelled, 2,000 at least have been on solid dirt roads. So 2,000 kilometres of rough dirt track, never let me down out there. Overall, it's a very good bike, and you'll be 100% satisfied if you make the investment in one of these. The only thing I would recommend if you're buying an Enfield, I would stay away from demo bikes. They're just not worth buying, or my thoughts are they're not worth buying. Paid a little bit extra, buy it and you run it in carefully, because it's critical that you run these in good for long-term results. And if you do follow that guideline alone, just for the sake of thinking, I might save a few $100s, you know demo bikes, you get into them, you flog the crap out of them and they get out there. These bikes have to be run in, you don't want them overheating or anything like that in the first 500 kilometres and pay the price further down the track. So the smart idea would be, buy it brand new, run it in carefully. After that, everything's sweet and you'll be out on the road and you'll enjoy life to the fullest on a classic 350 Reborn. Now right from the start I decided to do all the servicing, and by that they're a fairly simple thing. Do an oil filter change on one of these. Compared to what a dealer will charge you could probably do it yourself for $20 or $25 each time. And I think I give this three oil and filter changes in the first 1,000 kilometres. Now you might say that's a bit of an overkill. Well, not really. A dealer will probably charge you $150 or more just to do it, and I did 3 for $75, and I know that it was done, and hopefully done correctly, and I never had any issues in it that way. I also did my valve adjustment at $500, and that could save you quite a few $100s too. It's a pretty simple process, the valve adjustment. If you follow my guideline or tips, you'll be able to go into the my history section, find the clip, and go from there. If you want to see anything about this bike, I've got probably 30 to 50 videos on it all the way through, and there's heaps of them there, and you'll get an idea where I've taken it, where I haven't, what tracks I've been on, camping trips, everything that you could possibly want to know about this particular bike, rather than just a quick review here now. Everything you want to know, you could go into my history and find everything, because I've been associated with Enfields now for 10 years, and I think I've had to date now 22 of them, so, and they're all brand new ones. So I've had quite a few Enfields, so I know the bikes pretty well. So by going in there, anything you want to know, you'll find it, whether it's that, or if you want to know a bit about 500s, they're there too. So, you know, it covers both fields of bikes there, and you should be satisfied in that one. Yeah, so let's talk accessories. The first thing I did, I had a spare set of 500 shocks, the piggyback ones, so I pulled the original shocks off this, which I classed weren't much, and put the 500 shocks on there. After that, I went to touring mirrors. They're a good mod too. Next up, I did the heel and toe shifter. I bought a tax disc on eBay for 20 bucks. I bought the touring seat, which is far superior to the factory seat, and I also bought a spring kit with it, which doesn't serve really any purpose, just as it's cosmetic. And then to top it all off, I bought a Harley 883 rear rack from eBay, and the only thing about those is, don't make a mistake, you want the 11-inch one. They make 3 different sizes on those, and you've got to get, this is 11-inch rack on it now. So that's the one I think it looks the best on it. So if you see one for $30 or $35, take into account you're buying the wrong rack. So apart from that, I did a little bit of graffiti on the side and coloured in the Royal Enfield thing in a text or permanent marker. And the best thing I like that one, it fades after a while compared to if you put a good one on, and it almost looks like it's old like the bike. Because the best thing about these classic 350s, people think you're riding a really old veteran bike, and I think that's a novelty of it. So if you ask me who's this bike's for, well, I think it's anyone who's sort of more old school rider. It likes the idea of back in the 60s when they bought one of these bikes, but the trouble with them in those days, they were unreliable, they were carby. Here you get dual channel ABS, you get fuel injection, and you get, and most people don't like it when I say you get first start every time and it's highly reliable, but the fact is I've had that many bikes, especially carbies and cars, which were unreliable compared to these ones fuel injected jobs, and a fuel injected job will easily beat a carby system any day. Over the past 10 years, out of any car or bike I've had, there's been quite a lot, I've never had an issue with a fuel injection on either a car or a bike. Don't worry about buying any of these tuners or that for these stock bikes or sports air cleaner. you're only just wasting your money. These bikes run all right in stock form. If you're getting into it and maybe doing cams and things like that, or a really high performance sports exhaust, and you really need better breathing and all that sort of crap that goes with it, then, but in that case, why don't you just buy yourself a bigger bike and save the expense and get something that'll handle it and you don't have to do nothing to it whatsoever. The best thing about this bike, they're a novelty, they look good, and in that standard form with 20 horsepower, they'll motor you along at 100 kilometres an hour on the flat, and how fast do you really want to go? Believe me, if you're out there doing 100 kilometres an hour and a tree jumps out, or a kangaroo, and you hit one of those, it's not going to make much difference whether you're doing 100 or 120. Either way, it's not going to be nice. Can't really tell you what the headlights are like at night because I haven't been out at night time. I'm not allowed out at night to go riding around on a motorcycle, so no idea how they perform. But, you know, I would expect they'd be just like any other bike, you know, like not much. That's what my thoughts are. But apart from that, to say what it's like to ride around town, it's all right to ride around, taking account too it's 195 kilos, so it's not lightweight, where you can swing in and out the traffic with ease. The little Hunter I've got is a lot more nimble in town riding compared to this bike. This bike shows its weight at 195 kilos, the Hunter being about, I don't know, 15 or 20 kilos lighter. You can tell it's a lot more nippier bike to ride, sharper in the steering. This has got 19-inch front, 18-inch rear, where the Hunter's got 217. Say for example you're on the fence and you're deciding you're going to buy one of these and you can't decide between a classic 350 Reborn and the new Hunter. Now if you like old school type bikes, there's no choice. This is the bike to buy, the classic 350 Reborn, because it's just such a fun, nice bike to ride, and it'll put a smile on your face anytime you sort of get off it and come back and have a look at it. Now sure, the Hunter's a lot more sportier bike, and it's more like you get out there and have a bit of fun carving its way through corners and like that. But the riding position on this classic 350 Reborn is far more relaxed compared to the Hunter, and the Hunter rides a little bit hard on the thing too, but that could be to do with, you know, it's just got the stock suspension, but it's too long now for me to remember now what this ran like with the stock suspension when I first got it. And like I said, I've got the touring seat, which makes a fair bit of difference, and I've also got those classic 500 rear shocks on it, which help a lot too. So it's not really stock in that line, so it's very hard to compare it. But overall, you know, like if you ask me which one I'd prefer to ride, I actually, you know, I've been out here, come out here today, run along at 80, 90, 100 kilometres an hour, run along quite well. I think this classic 350 Reborn is really, really a hard bike to beat. There's just no comparison. And plus it looks older than the Hunter too. The Hunter looks a little bit more modern. May suit the younger ones more who don't want to ride one of these where they look at it and say, oh, this looks too old. But I like this idea like that, and I think with a couple of the mods I've put on it, you know, I really like the touring mirrors. I really like that touring seat. I like the stock exhaust because I'm sick of listening to sports exhausts on these Enfields now, and you know, if you put a good enough exhaust on those singles and they bang really loud, neighbours and other people don't like it when you're disturbing them all the time. So you got problems there, and I don't mind the look of this one because I think this torpedo exhaust on this one is a better looking one what they put on the 500. And you know, like this one, safety wise, you know, you do now get the new swing arm on these bikes, which first come in on the classic 500s in 2018 sort of, and you also get the rear disc and the ABS braking system. Fuel economy, yeah, I'm not too sure about that one, but I usually get out there, fill the tank right up, and then I know I'm good for a 300 kilometre run. I think the clutches on these are slightly heavy between it and the Hunter, you know, like it's not a slip and assist clutch, so there's a little bit of feel in the clutch, but I don't know, it's never sort of worried me much in that line. And I think from memory I've not even adjusted the clutch on this one in 10,000 kilometres, so things have been good in that way. Plus the best thing about doing your own oil and filter change, you get the satisfaction of knowing you did it yourself, and more importantly, the apprentice never did it and you never paid a full mechanic price. I must admit there's been a couple of times when I've had to go really hard on the anchors on this one, but so far I haven't felt the ABS engage once. And it works all right because of what happens when you turn your ignition on. When you ride off, I think when it gets to 5 or 8 kilometres an hour, the ABS light goes off, and you are, everything, you know, ABS is working fine after that. I did my own valve adjustment. You know, you can get that down to a fair knack after a while. I think I can do a valve adjustment from a coal motor from scratch now in roughly 30 minutes. Like by the time I pull the seat tank all down, check the adjustment, come back, put it back together and turned on. But I've done it quite a few times now, just sometimes checking things out and just seeing how long that gasket's good for on the top part of the rocker cover. So if you're not there checking that out, well, I suppose first off it might take you, I don't know, hour to hour and a half, and your biggest problem is when you getting your fuel line, high pressure fuel line off, and the clip there goes to the petrol pump under the tank. They're the little touchy ones to get off, and first time off on a new bike, they are on there, it seems to be really tight, and they take a bit of getting to. But apart from that, it's nothing that if you take your time you can't get in, and there's plenty of YouTube clips out there that show you how to do it. Mine's in there if you want to go checking the history. So it just depends on whether you're prepared to put a bit of effort into it and go out and sort of source these things out how to do it, or whether you want to pay the dealer $200-300 or more for him to do it and get his word that he possibly did it, and he may have done it or he may not, or he might be just charging you. I think it just depends on how they feel. How do you know the dealer doesn't say, yeah, we've done it, but the mechanic out the back never did it? So I find when I'm riding this along the dirt roads, 50, sometimes 60 kilometres an hour, it can run along all right and it's standard form. And the only thing is you get into some rough areas, they don't like potholes and stuff like that. Out on the bitumen, well, or the seal stuff, it runs along nice straight sections at 100 kilometres an hour with no trouble whatsoever. Probably you could push it along a bit faster and maybe even go at times up to 110 if you want to. You know, there might be people get on there and say, I ride mine at 110 all the time. Well, all I can say is good luck to you, but it won't happen here because our speed zone's 100. Anyway, I hope you found this bit of info I put together on the Classic 350 Reborn helpful. Like I said, I've had it now 18 months, longest I've ever owned a bike, or one particular bike from new. Plus I put on 10,000 kilometres, which breaks the record of furthest I've ever ridden a bike from new. So to me, it's been a great bike, and, to look back at what I've had and still have the bike, must be a credit to Enfield to say they built a pretty good bike, because as a rule I get the chance to ride quite a few bikes. Over the past 10 years I think 4, 5, 6 new bikes a year I may go through. But after a while you get sick of doing that stuff all the time, and mainly it happened because of sheer boredom, I think, and the fact is I wasn't happy with the bikes I was riding. But as it is now, I've got a good selection of bikes there I'm happy with riding, and the only problem is now get out and give them a bone. So that's always a problem, like you either get the ones that you like riding and you can't ride the other ones. But apart from that, this one here as well, look, it is really a nice looking bike. So if you can't buy one of these and be not happy with it for the fact of what you're getting, like imagine if they were a customised job and somebody was building your bike like this, then you would probably be paying $15,000 for it instead of $8 and think you got a good deal. Where at the moment you only pay $8,000 for it and look after it and you have got a very good deal. Throw a few accessories on it to tailor-made it to your own requirements, and you'll be a very happy camper in that line. And speaking of camping, I've had this out camping too. I've had it everywhere, so I've had it you'd have to go back into my history and check where I've had it, where I haven't. And I think you'd be very impressed with what this bike will do in stock form, where you can take it, how well it handles it, and more importantly, you always get back home. So, if you look at things like that, that's the big plus with this particular bike. It may not be the case after you get their modern bikes. I find that once you start modern Enfields especially, they become unreliable, and once they break down on you a couple of times, you soon lose faith in them. Now, I decided from the start I wasn't going to go into any heavy modern on this bike, like on the 500s. I used to put sports exhaust on them, power commanders, EJK jetting kits, anything, sports air cleaners, anything I could to get more power or go out of them. But in the end, there was always a problem. So, and like all things, the smart idea, if you're not happy with it, you jump up to a bigger bike. If you think these aren't powerful enough, my advice would be go straight to a 650 Interceptor, because I had 2 of those and they're very good bikes. But, you got to kid yourself. The Interceptor doesn't look as good as this Classic 350. Like these are really live up to their name, Classic. So once again, thanks for tuning in, taking a look. Hope you found my 10,000 kilometre review on this bike interesting, and I hope that you may want to get out there to a dealer and decide to yourself, I wouldn't mind what Warro said, take one of these and run them what I think. And I think, you know, you could live with this as your only bike if you just wanted to invest X amount of money and say, well, I got a nice bike in the shed. You don't have to get out there and ride bloody dirt roads like I do. You know, if you just want to ride around town and out in the seal stuff, that's good enough. And, you know, the bike will probably last a bit longer. But like I said, I'm really surprised how well this one's taken it, just for curiosity's sake, and, you know, it's handled it quite well. And it's still really a nice, tight bike to ride with 10,000 kilometres on it. And if I had any doubts, I'd be thinking to myself, well, I might get rid of it, see what I can get for it and buy another one. But at this stage, that's not the case, and I'm enjoying the travels on the bike. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation I've put together for you. If you feel like giving it a thumbs up or subscribe, you can go to that one too. If not, no harm done, and catch you later. Okay, wait, I'll just lock it in. Okay, let go. Yeah, I'll tell you what, lock's good. Yeah, so if we have a look at this now, it's called a Nifty Lift, and it's from the USA.